It was supposed to be a polite morning interview, lighthearted, friendly, and focused on Meghan Markle's charity initiatives. But as soon as the cameras started rolling on Good Morning Britain, the tension in the studio was thick enough to slice with a knife. Piers Morgan sat in his chair, his familiar smirk plastered across his face, shuffling the cue cards in front of him. Across from him, Meghan sat gracefully, her poise impeccable. But behind her calm eyes, there was a storm brewing. "Good morning, Duchess," Piers began, emphasizing the title with a tone that carried more mockery than respect. "It's been quite a journey since you stepped back from royal duties, hasn't it?" Meghan smiled politely. "Yes, it has. It's been a time for growth, reflection, and focusing on things that truly matter, my family and humanitarian work." Piers chuckled, leaning back. "Reflection, indeed. Some might say you've reflected your way out of every royal responsibility." A quiet gasp rippled through the crew. Meghan's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "I think you misunderstand, Piers. My decision was about mental health, family, and freedom, not avoidance of duty." "Freedom," Piers repeated, raising his brows. "You talk a lot about freedom for someone who spent years complaining about being in the spotlight, and yet, here you are again, on national television." The jab landed. For a moment, Meghan's lips parted in disbelief. She took a deep breath before replying. "The difference, Mr. Morgan, is that this time, I'm speaking on my own terms, not as someone's title, but as a woman." The audience watching from home could feel the tension rising. Meghan's calm voice contrasted sharply with Piers' growing hostility. He leaned forward. "So you claim you left because of the media pressure. But isn't it true that you've signed multi-million-dollar deals since? Netflix, Spotify, book releases, doesn't seem like someone running away from attention." Meghan blinked slowly, her patience wearing thin. "It's not attention that matters, Piers. It's purpose. You can use a platform to destroy people, or to inspire them. I've chosen the latter." Piers smirked. "Inspire them to what? Complain about privilege." That was it. The audience fell silent. Even Susanna Reid, Piers' co-host, shot him a sharp look. "Piers," she said quietly, "maybe let her finish." But he didn't stop. "You've played the victim long enough, Meghan. Maybe it's time to admit you knew exactly what you were signing up for when you married into the royal family." The words echoed in the studio. Meghan's face paled slightly, but her eyes hardened. "No woman," she said firmly, "signs up for abuse, racism, or relentless attacks on her mental health. You may not understand that, Piers, but you should." There was a long pause. The cameras caught Piers, face tightening. He shuffled his papers, visibly irritated. "Well," he said stiffly, "some might argue that's just the price of fame." Meghan stood up. "And some might argue that empathy is free, but not everyone can afford it." She removed her microphone calmly and placed it on the table. The crew exchanged stunned looks. Susanna reached out as if to stop her, but Meghan only smiled politely. "I think this conversation is over," she said, her tone measured but powerful. "When people use platforms to belittle others, that's not journalism, that's bullying." The cameras were still rolling when Meghan turned and walked off the set. The audience erupted online within minutes. Clips of her exit flooded Twitter and YouTube. #Meghan walks out began trending within the hour. Piers sat frozen for a moment before muttering, "Well, that was dramatic." But his usual confidence had vanished. Viewers noticed. Even his company hosts didn't defend him this time. Susanna broke the silence. "Maybe," she said softly, "we should all think about the power of our words." Behind the scenes, Meghan's team tried to calm the storm. But it was too late, the internet had already chosen sides. Half of the world praised her for standing up for herself. The other half accused her of playing the victim again. By evening, headlines flooded every major outlet. Greater than, Meghan Markle walks out of Piers Morgan interview after heated exchange. Piers pushes too far, Duchess defends herself live on air. A clash that rocked British morning television. At her hotel later that night, Meghan sat by the window, sipping tea and looking out over the London skyline. She felt exhausted, but there was also a quiet sense of relief. For once, she hadn't stayed silent. Her assistant, Clara, entered gently. "The clip's gone viral, Meghan. Millions of views already." Meghan smiled faintly. "Good. Maybe people will finally start listening, not to the noise, but to the truth." She turned back to the window, watching the city lights flicker below. Somewhere in the distance, Big Ben struck 9. It was the sound of London, the city she'd left, the city she'd just faced again. By the next morning, every major news outlet in Britain, and half the world, was buzzing about Meghan Markle's explosive walkout from Good Morning Britain. The video had been replayed millions of times. Social media was ablaze, journalists were dissecting every word, and hashtags like #StandWithMeghan and #Piers Morgan meltdown were trending simultaneously. At ITV headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. Producers, publicists, and executives huddled in private meetings. What was meant to be a routine interview had turned into a PR nightmare. Piers Morgan, however, was unbothered, or at least, pretending to be. He strutted into the studio the next morning, coffee in hand, acting as though nothing had happened. But his smirk faltered when he saw the crowd of reporters waiting outside the building. "Mr. Morgan, do you regret how you spoke to Meghan Markle?" One shouted. "Are you planning to apologize?" Another added. He ignored them, pushing through the doors with tight lips. Inside, even his company host seemed uneasy. Susanna Reid barely looked at him. During the opening of the show, she spoke first, her tone calm but pointed. "Yesterday's interview with the Duchess of Sussex caused a strong reaction from viewers," she began. "We've received thousands of messages, many expressing concern about the tone and treatment shown on air." Piers forced a laugh. "Oh, come on, Susanna. She walked out because she didn't want tough questions. That's not my fault." But this time, Susanna didn't smile. "There's a difference between tough questions and disrespect," she replied. The tension was thick. Viewers could sense it immediately. For once, Piers wasn't winning the argument. Meanwhile, in California, Meghan sat in her Montecito home with Harry beside her, scrolling through headlines. Harry frowned as he read aloud, "Piers Morgan faces backlash for Meghan interview, thousands call for apology." He looked at her. "Are you all right?" Meghan nodded slowly. "I'm fine. I knew something like this would happen. But people saw the truth. That's enough for me." Harry smiled softly. "You were brilliant. You didn't lose your temper. You showed strength." She sighed. "I didn't want to walk out. But sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do." Later that day, her spokesperson released a short statement. "Greater than, the Duchess of Sussex appreciates the support shown by so many. She hopes this moment reminds everyone of the importance of respectful dialogue and mental health awareness." The statement spread across the internet like wildfire. Celebrities, journalists, and activists began speaking out in her defense. Oprah tweeted, "Greater than, grace under pressure. That's what leadership looks like." Even members of parliament weighed in, criticizing the toxic media culture that had once again targeted Meghan. By evening, the pressure on ITV had grown unbearable. Viewers demanded action. Sponsors threatened to pull ads. Finally, the network released its own statement. "Greater than, ITV values open discussion but does not condone disrespectful treatment of guests. We are reviewing the incident internally." Piers read it live on air the next morning, and for the first time, his voice faltered. The network had turned against him. Still, he refused to apologize. "I stand by everything I said," he declared. "I won't be bullied into silence just because someone doesn't like being questioned." But his defiance only made things worse. Within hours, rumors began circulating that ITV executives were considering suspending him. That evening, he received a call from the network director. Their conversation was brief. "Piers," the voice said firmly, "we can't keep defending this. You've crossed a line." He slammed his phone down, furious. So now telling the truth is crossing a line. For the first time in years, he realized he was on the losing side of public opinion. Across the ocean, Meghan watched the developments quietly. She didn't gloat, didn't post, didn't celebrate. Instead, she went back to work, meeting with her team about an upcoming mental health campaign. Her assistant handed her a phone showing a headline. "Greater than, Piers Morgan quits Good Morning Britain amid Meghan Markle controversy." Meghan looked at it for a long moment, then simply said, "Maybe now, people will start thinking before they speak." Harry looked up from across the room. "You handled it with dignity, Meg. That's what people will remember." She smiled faintly. "You can't control what others say about you. But you can control how you respond." Weeks later, Meghan appeared again, Not on a talk show, but at a charity event in Los Angeles. The crowd cheered as she took the stage, her voice calm and composed. "When you speak your truth," she said, "some will try to silence you. But remember, silence never changes the world." The audience erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Somewhere in the back, a journalist whispered, "She won the moment." Because this time, she didn't walk out. She stood tall, and the world listened.